Put that bowl down. That was our last soup. Vivian Brooks screamed from the diner doorway, her red jacket shining under the yellow sign like a warning light. Naomi Carter froze on the sidewalk with the steaming bowl in both hands. In front of her, a blind old man sat against the wall, his dark glasses cracked, his white cane resting beside his knees. His fingers trembled as he reached for the soup. Behind Naomi, rich customers pressed against the windows. Phones lifted. A cook stopped moving. Someone laughed under his breath. Naomi's uniform was faded. Her shoes were split at the side, and her stomach had been empty since morning. But she still lowered herself to one knee and placed the bowl into the old man's hands. "He is hungry," she said softly. Vivian stormed closer. "And you are stealing from my business." The old man did not move. He only touched the edge of the bowl. Then his thumb brushed a heavy gold ring on his finger. A lion was carved into it. For one strange second, Vivian saw the ring and stopped shouting. Her face changed. Not fear, not yet, but something close. Then she looked at the crowd and forced her anger back onto Naomi. "Stand up," Vivian snapped. "You want to play angel in front of my customers? Pay for it." Naomi swallowed. The soup smelled of chicken, pepper, and onions. It was the last pot from the kitchen, the one Vivian had promised to a late customer who always tipped in cash. Naomi had saved nothing for herself. She had planned to take the burnt bread from the back tray after closing, wrap it in napkins, and eat it on the bus to her mother's room. But when the old man knocked on the glass and whispered that he had not eaten all day, Naomi could not walk past him. She had seen too many people walk past. She had been walked past her whole life. "Mrs. Brooks," Naomi said, keeping her voice low, "I will pay for the soup from my wages." "Your wages?" Vivian gave a sharp laugh. "Girl, your wages already belong to the rent you owe, the dishes you break, and the hours you beg me for." A woman near the register covered her mouth. A teenage boy held his phone higher. Naomi felt the lens on her face. Heat climbed up her neck, but she did not look away. "Then take it from tonight," she said, "but let him eat." The blind man lifted his face slightly. He seemed to listen to her voice more than her words. His hand tightened around the bowl. The gold ring caught the diner light again. The lion flashed, proud and silent, completely out of place on a beggar's dirty hand. Vivian noticed Naomi looking at it. She stepped between them. "Do not stare at him like he is some miracle," Vivian hissed. "He is a street beggar, and you are a waitress who forgot her place." Naomi's fingers curled around her apron. She wanted to say that hunger did not have a place. She wanted to say that a person was still a person outside a glass door. But her mother's hospital bill sat folded in her pocket. Grace Carter needed medicine by morning. One lost shift could mean one missed dose. One missed dose could mean the cough would return. So Naomi stayed quiet. Not weak. Quiet. There was a difference. Vivian pointed toward the diner floor. "Come inside and apologize to every customer waiting for food." The sidewalk went still. The old man lifted the spoon, but did not eat. "She gave what she had," he said. His voice was rough, but there was weight under it. Vivian turned to him slowly. "And who are you to speak in my doorway?" The old man tilted his head. "A man who is hungry. Then be grateful and silent." A small sound moved through the crowd. Not outrage. Entertainment. The kind of sound people make when cruelty feels safe because it is happening to someone poor. Naomi stood, but she kept herself between Vivian and the old man. Her knees shook. Her dignity did not. "I will apologize for upsetting the diner," Naomi said, "but I will not apologize for feeding him." The laughter died a little. Vivian's smile thinned. "You think that sounds noble? It sounds unemployed." She reached out and snatched Naomi's name tag from her apron. The pin tore the fabric. Naomi flinched, but she did not cry out. "No vach, no sift, no soup, no pachik." The words hit harder than a slap. Naomi's hand moved to her pocket, where the hospital bill weighted like a stone. The old man slowly lowered the spoon. His blind eyes stayed hidden behind the cracked glasses, but his face turned toward Vivian with a stillness that made even the cook step back. "What is her name?" he asked. Vivian scoffed. "Her name does not matter. It matters to me." The sentence landed strangely. Too calm, too certain. Vivian looked again at the gold ring, and this time her mouth tightened before she caught herself. Naomi Carter, she said coldly. A broke girl with a soft heart and empty pockets. Naomi looked down, ashamed that her name had been made into a joke. The old man repeated it under his breath. Naomi Carter, like he was trying to remember where he had heard it before. Then Vivian grabbed Naomi's torn sleeve and pulled her toward the diner door. Get out of my sight before I call security. The bowl shook in the old man's hands. A drop of soup spilled onto the pavement. Naomi turned back once. Sir, please eat before it gets cold. The old man did not lift the spoon. He touched the lion ring again and asked one quiet question that made Vivian stop in the doorway. Naomi Carter, who taught you to give away your last meal? The question stayed in the air like smoke. Naomi Carter, who taught you to give away your last meal? For the first time that night, the sidewalk outside Brooks' diner went completely quiet. Even the customers behind the glass stopped whispering. Naomi stood with her torn name tag in Vivian's fist, her sleeve pulled out of shape, and her heart beating so hard she could feel it in her throat. The blind old man sat below them with a bowl of soup untouched in his hands. His thumb rested on the gold lion ring, as if the answer mattered more than the food. Naomi looked at him, confused by the sadness in his voice. My mother, she said. She said hunger makes people invisible. So when you see someone hungry, you do not look away. Something moved across the old man's face. A crack in the stone. A pain too old to explain. Vivian saw it and stepped in fast. Enough of this street sermon, she said. Naomi inside. Now. Naomi did not move. The late customer who had ordered the soup slammed his hand on the counter behind the window. He wore a silver watch and a suit that looked more expensive than Naomi's rent. I paid for dinner, he barked. Not a charity show. Vivian pointed toward him like his anger was proof. You hear that? Real customers are waiting. Naomi glanced at the bowl. The steam was fading. The old man still had not eaten. Sir, she whispered, please, eat. He lifted the spoon slowly, but before it reached his mouth, Vivian grabbed Naomi by the arm and dragged her back through the diner door. The little bell above the entrance rang bright and cruel. Inside, the warm smell of fried fish, hot bread, and coffee wrapped around Naomi's empty stomach. Every table seemed to look at her at once. A woman with diamond earrings shook her head. A man muttered, people like her always act holy with someone else's money. Naomi kept her eyes down, not because she was guilty, because she had learned that poor people had to survive other people's opinions like bad weather. Vivian threw the torn name tag onto the counter. Tell them, she said, tell my customers why they did not get their soup. Naomi's hands shook at her sides. Her phone buzzed in her apron pocket. Once, twice. She knew that sound. The hospital number. Grace Carter's ward. She wanted to answer, but Vivian's eyes pinned her in place. Speak, Vivian ordered. Naomi swallowed. I gave the soup to a hungry man outside. A few customers groaned. The man in the silver watch laughed. That is not kindness. That is theft with tears. Naomi's face burned, but her voice stayed gentle. I said I would pay for it. Vivian snapped back. With what? Prayers. The diner laughed. Not everyone, but enough. Naomi felt the sound hit her chest. Then the phone buzzed again. This time the cracked screen lit up through the thin fabric of her apron. Vivian saw it. Do not touch that. Naomi closed her fingers around the pocket anyway. It is my mother's hospital. Vivian's expression hardened, not because she did not understand, but because she did. Your mother is not on tonight's menu. A silence fell. Even a man with a watch looked away for half a second. Naomi's eyes filled, but she did not let the tears fall. She needs her medicine before morning, Naomi said. I was going to use tonight's pay. Vivian leaned close, lowering her voice, but making sure every table could still hear. Then you should have thought about that before feeding a stranger. Outside, through the glass, the blind old man turned his face toward the diner as if he could hear every word through the door. He held the bowl on his lap. The lion ring flashed under the streetlight. He did not look poor in that one detail. The ring looked like it belonged in a bank vault, not on a hand wrapped around charity soup. A young busboy named Caleb stared at it through the window. Mrs. Brooks, he whispered. That ring. Vivian whipped around. Back to work. Caleb lowered his head. Tiny hope rose in Naomi for one breath. Someone else had seen it. Someone else had noticed something strange. Then Vivian crushed it. And since you like feeding strangers so much, you can feed yourself somewhere else tonight. She opened the register, pulled out a small envelope marked Naomi, and tore it in half. Naomi stepped forward before she could stop herself. Please, Mrs. Brooks. That is for the medicine. The word please came out broken, but her spine stayed straight. She did not grab. She did not scream. She only watched the rent, the bus fare, the medicine, and the last thin line of safety fall into Vivian's trash can. The customers shifted. Some enjoyed it. Some looked ashamed. No one stood up. And if you were watching this happen in front of you, would you believe the poor waitress who gave away her last meal, or the rich owner everyone was afraid to question? Naomi reached into the trash, but Vivian blocked her with one polished red heel. Leave it, she said. Tomorrow morning, you bring back the cost of that soup, or you do not come back at all. Naomi's phone buzzed a third time. This time, the screen showed one short message from the hospital. Your mother is asking for you. Naomi's breath caught. Outside, the blind old man finally stood. He leaned on his white cane, the soup still in one hand, and tapped gently on the glass. Once, twice. Every head turned. Vivian's face tightened. Ignore him. But the old man raised his ringed hand and pointed, not at Vivian, not at the soup, but at Naomi's torn name tag lying on the counter. Then he said through the glass, calm enough to chill the room, Bring me the girl's full name. Bring me the girl's full name. The old man's words pressed against the glass, soft but heavy enough to stop the whole diner. Naomi stared at him from beside the trash can, one hand still hovering over the torn envelope Vivian had thrown away. Her mother's message glowed on her cracked phone. Your mother is asking for you. For a second, Naomi forgot the customers, the cameras, the laughter, even the bowl of soup outside. All she could see was a hospital bed, thin blankets, and Grace Carter trying to breathe without showing pain. Vivian moved first. She snatched the name tag from the counter and shoved it into her jacket pocket. No one is bringing him anything, she said. He is not a customer. He is a problem. Naomi turned toward the door. I need to go to the hospital. Vivian blocked her path. You need to finish cleaning my kitchen. Naomi looked at the clock above the coffee machine. 10:58. The last bus to Mercy General left in 12 minutes. No pachik, no dinner, no medicine money, and now, maybe no way to reach her mother before morning. Mrs. Brooks, please let me leave, Naomi said, her voice small but steady. Dock the shift. Keep the money. Just let me see her. Vivian smiled without warmth. You already gave away what was not yours. Now you want time that is not yours. The man with the silver watch leaned back like he was watching a show. Fire her and move on, he said. Naomi did not answer him. She bent down, picked up the two torn pieces of her pay envelope from the trash, and held them like they were something sacred. It was only paper, but to Naomi, it was medicine. Busfare. One more night of Grace breathing easier. Vivian clicked her tongue. Look at that. Crying over scraps. Naomi lifted her eyes. Scraps keep people alive when they have nothing else. The words landed quiet. They did not win the room, but they stopped one young waitress from laughing. Caleb looked at the floor. Outside, the blind old man stood very still, listening. The soup in his hand had gone cold. Then Naomi's phone rang. Not buzzed. Hung. The hospital number filled the cracked screen again. Vivian reached for it. Naomi pulled back. No. The word surprised even her. Vivian's eyebrows rose. Excuse me. Naomi held the phone to her chest. Her hands shook, but she did not lower her head. You can take my shift. You can take my pay. But you cannot take my mother's voice. A deep silence moved through the diner. For the first time, Vivian looked truly angry because dignity was the one thing she could not price, tear, or throw away. Naomi answered the call. The nurse's voice came through thin and urgent. Naomi, your mother is asking for you. Her medicine refill was not approved. We need payment before morning. Naomi closed her eyes. I am coming. Can you bring the deposit? The nurse asked. Naomi looked at the torn envelope in her hand. I will try. The call ended. No miracle. No rescue. Just a bigger hole under her feet. Vivian stepped aside at last, but only because she wanted everyone to see Naomi leave with nothing. "Go then," she said. "Run to the hospital with empty pockets." Naomi walked to the door. Her shoes made almost no sound. When she passed the window, the blind old man lifted the bowl slightly, as if he wanted to give it back. Naomi shook her head. "Eat," she whispered through the glass. "Please." The old man's jaw tightened. He did not eat. He watched her the way a blind man should not have been able to watch. Naomi stepped into the cold sidewalk air, clutching the torn envelope and her cracked phone. The bus stop was 6 blocks away. Her stomach twisted with hunger. Her knees still hurt from kneeling. Behind her, Vivian locked the diner door with a loud click, cutting her off from the lights, the heat, and the little pay she had earned. Naomi started walking. 1 block, 2 blocks. By the third, the hospital called again, but her battery flashed red. At the corner, she opened her purse and counted everything she had. 3 coins, a bus pass with 1 ride left, a folded hospital bill, and 1 small paper napkin from the diner, stained with soup. On it, written in shaky dark ink, were 4 words she had not seen before. "Ask about the lion." Naomi stopped under the street lamp. Her breath caught. She turned back toward Brooks' diner. The old man was gone. The bowl was on the sidewalk, empty. Beside it, in the wet circle of spilled soup, the mark of a lion had been pressed into the napkin like a seal. The lion mark sat on the napkin like it had been burned there. Naomi held it under the street lamp, her fingers shaking from hunger, cold, and fear. Ask about the lion. 4 words. No name, no address, no promise. Just a question that made the night feel larger than 1 bowl of soup. Behind her, Brooks' diner glowed at the end of the block, bright and warm, while Naomi stood outside with 3 coins, a torn pay envelope, and a hospital bill folded against her chest. She wanted to run to the bus. She wanted to throw the napkin away and stop chasing mysteries she could not afford. But her mother's message flashed again on the cracked phone. "Your mother is asking for you." Naomi whispered, "Mama, what lion?" Inside the diner, Caleb wiped the front window and stared at the empty bowl on the sidewalk. He had worked at Brooks' diner for 2 years. He had seen drunk men, tired nurses, rich customers, and hungry people who knocked on the glass after closing. But he had never seen a beggar wear a ring like that. He looked over his shoulder. Vivian was counting cash at the register, Naomi's torn name tag pinned under her thumb like a trophy. Caleb lowered his voice. "Mrs. Brooks, that ring had the Freeman lion." Vivian's hand froze over the bills, only for half a second. Then she kept counting. "You saw nothing." Caleb swallowed. "My uncle worked security downtown. He said only people close to the Freeman family wear that seal." Vivian snapped the drawer shut. "Your uncle should learn when to keep his mouth closed." Across town, in a black sedan parked near Mercy General Hospital, the blind old man sat in the back seat with his cracked glasses still on. His white cane rested beside him. His thumb moved slowly over the gold lion ring, again and again, like he was testing an old wound. A younger man in a dark suit sat in the driver's seat, tense and silent. His name was Marcus Reed, and he spoke with the careful voice of someone who was used to protecting powerful secrets. "Sir," Marcus said, "your security team is still searching the north side. They are worried." The old man faced the hospital entrance, where poor families moved through tired fluorescent light. "Let them worry a little longer." Marcus glanced in the mirror. "Should I ask about the waitress?" The old man lifted a soup-stained napkin Naomi had not seen him keep. "Find out who Naomi Carter is." Marcus paused. "Why her?" The old man's thumb stopped on the lion. "Because she gave away what she needed." Back at the diner, Vivian walked into her office and shut the door. Her confidence fell the moment no one could see her. She pulled Naomi's torn name tag from her pocket and stared at it. Naomi Carter. The name should have meant nothing. A poor waitress. A late shift. A replaceable girl. But the old beggar had repeated it like a memory. And that ring. Vivian opened a locked drawer and pulled out an old newspaper clipping about Freeman Holdings, a company powerful enough to buy hospitals, hotels, and restaurant chains without blinking. At the bottom of the clipping was the same lion seal. Vivian's mouth went dry. "No," she whispered. "He was just a beggar." Then her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered with forced sharpness. Brooks Diner. A calm male voice spoke. This is Marcus Reed. I am calling on behalf of a private client. Did a waitress named Naomi Carter work at your diner tonight? Vivian gripped the desk. Her eyes jumped to the security monitor where the outside camera showed the empty bowl on the sidewalk. Why are you asking? My client wants her full name confirmed. Vivian smiled too fast, even though no one could see it. Naomi is unstable. She stole food, abandoned her shift, and harassed a customer. There was silence on the line. Not confused silence. Recording silence. Then Marcus said, Did you file a report? Vivian's smile vanished. Not yet. Then do not misplace the footage. The call ended. Vivian stared at the phone, breathing harder now. For the first time all night, she was not controlling the room. Something outside her money, outside her diner, outside her lies, had started moving. Naomi reached Mercy General just before her phone died. The nurse at the desk knew her face and hated looking at her with bad news. Naomi, the refill cannot be released without payment. Naomi put the torn envelope on the counter. This is all I have. The nurse looked at the ripped paper and 3 coins. Sweetheart, this will not cover even 1 dose. Naomi nodded. Behind the desk, an old janitor pushing a mop paused when he saw the napkin in her hand. His eyes narrowed at the lion mark. Where did you get that? Naomi turned. A man outside the diner left it. The janitor stepped closer. That is not just a lion. That is Freeman. Naomi's breath caught. Freeman who? Before he could answer, the automatic doors opened. Marcus Reed entered in a dark suit, his eyes scanning the lobby until they landed on the torn envelope in Naomi's hand and the soup-stained napkin beside it. He stopped. Naomi Carter? Naomi took 1 step back. Who wants to know? Marcus looked at the lion mark, then at her tired face. A man who says you fed him when everyone else looked away. A man who says you fed him when everyone else looked away. Marcus Reed said it so calmly that Naomi almost did not understand the danger inside it. The nurse stopped typing. The old janitor froze with his mop in both hands. Naomi stood in the hospital lobby with 3 coins, a torn pay envelope, and a soup-stained napkin marked with a lion. She should have felt relief. Instead, fear rose in her chest. Powerful men did not come looking for poor waitresses in the middle of the night unless something was wrong. I did not know that man, Naomi said. I only gave him soup. Marcus looked at the torn envelope. And what did it cost you? Naomi closed her fingers around the paper. More than I had. Before Marcus could answer, the lobby doors opened again. Vivian Brooks walked in wearing the same red jacket, her heels clicking against the hospital floor like small threats. Caleb trailed behind her, pale and silent. Vivian's eyes swept over Marcus, the napkin, the nurse, then Naomi. Her smile came fast, polished and false. There she is, Vivian said loudly. I knew she would run here and turn this into a pity story. Naomi's face went cold. Mrs. Brooks, why are you here? Vivian lifted Naomi's torn name tag from her purse. Because you left my diner after stealing food, abandoning your shift, and upsetting a paying customer. The nurse looked from Vivian to Naomi. Marcus did not speak. He only watched. Vivian stepped closer and dropped the name tag on the counter. I'm giving you 1 chance, Naomi. Sign a statement saying you acted alone. You gave away company property without permission, and you made up the story about that old man harassing you for food. Naomi blinked. He did not harass me. Then sign that you stole. Vivian's voice sharpened. Pick one. A security guard near the desk shifted his weight. 2 visitors turned their phones toward the scene. The same old pressure returned, only worse now. Not outside a diner. Not in front of customers waiting for soup. In a hospital. In the place where Naomi's mother was fighting for air. Vivian knew that. She used it. If you refuse, Vivian said, I call the police, and I make sure Mercy General knows you have a theft report coming. Hospitals do not like trouble near unpaid bills. Naomi's hand tightened around the napkin. The lion mark pressed into her palm. Marcus finally spoke. That is a serious accusation. Vivian turned to him with a rich woman's confidence. And who are you? Someone asking questions. Then ask the right one, Vivian said. Ask why this girl gave away food she did not own, then followed a blind stranger into some fantasy. Naomi's eyes filled, but she kept her voice low. I did not follow him. I came for my mother. Vivian leaned close enough for Naomi to smell perfume over hospital cleaner. Your mother needs medicine. You need money. So stop pretending dignity pays bills. The words hit the exact place Vivian wanted. Naomi looked toward the hallway that led to Grace Carter's room. The nurse looked down, ashamed. Tiny hope came from Marcus, who reached for the napkin and said, May I see that? Naomi hesitated, then handed it to him. The moment Marcus saw the line mark, his face changed. Not enough for the crowd. Enough for Vivian. Her hand shot out and snatched a napkin before he could turn it over. This is trash, Vivian said. Soup stains and street nonsense. Marcus's eyes hardened. Give it back. Vivian held it high, away from Naomi. No, this girl is building a lie out of garbage. Naomi stepped forward. That was not yours. Vivian laughed. Neither was the soup. The visitors whispered. One man near the vending machine muttered, Maybe the owner is right. Naomi heard it. She heard all of it. Every doubt, every judgment, every quiet decision to believe the woman in the red jacket because her shoes were clean and her voice was loud. Then the nurse's phone rang at the desk. She answered, listened, and her expression dropped. Naomi, she said gently, your mother is asking why the medicine has not come. Naomi turned pale. Vivian saw the wound open and pressed harder. She pulled a folded paper from her purse and slapped it on the counter. Sign this. I will release half your pay. Enough for one dose. Refuse, and you leave here with nothing but that saint act. Marcus stepped forward. Do not sign anything. Vivian snapped. Stay out of my business. Naomi stared at the paper. One dose. One night. One chance to stop her mother's coughing until morning. Her hand moved toward the pen. Not because she believed Vivian. Because poverty makes every bad choice look like mercy when someone you love is hurting. Marcus lowered his voice. Naomi, wait. Naomi looked at him. While waiting by her medicine. Marcus had no answer he could give without revealing too much, too soon. Vivian smiled. She was winning again. Naomi picked up the pen with trembling fingers. Then Caleb, who had stood silent near the doors, whispered, Mrs. Brooks, that is not the paper you showed me. Vivian turned slowly. What did you say? Caleb looked terrified, but he pointed to the counter. The statement. You changed it. The first one said she gave soup away. This one says she admitted stealing cash. The lobby went silent. Marcus looked down at the paper. Vivian's face hardened, but only for a breath before she recovered. The boy is confused. Caleb reached into his apron pocket and pulled out his phone. I took a picture. Vivian moved fast. Give me that. Caleb backed away, but Vivian grabbed his wrist. The phone slipped from his hand, skidded across the hospital floor, and stopped beside Marcus's shoe. On the cracked screen was a photo of Vivian's first statement, the diner camera time stamp visible in the corner, and behind it, through the window, the blind old man holding the bowl of soup with the gold lion ring shining on his hand. Marcus picked up the phone. Vivian went still. Naomi forgot to breathe. Then Marcus looked at the image, zoomed in on the ring, and said quietly, Mrs. Brooks, why did you lie about what happened before I even asked you? Mrs. Brooks, why did you lie about what happened before I even asked you? Marcus Reed's voice was not loud, but it cut through the hospital lobby like a clean blade. Vivian stood frozen beside the counter, one hand still reaching toward Caleb's phone. On the cracked screen, the photo showed everything she had tried to bury. The first statement, the diner time stamp, Naomi's torn name tag on the counter. And through the front window, the blind old man sitting outside with the bowl of soup in his hands, the gold lion ring shining under the streetlight. Naomi stared at the image, barely breathing. It was the first time all night that something outside her own words spoke for her. Not enough to save her. Not enough to clear her name, but enough to make the room hesitate. Vivian recovered fast. That picture proves nothing, she snapped. A blurry ring on a beggar's hand does not turn theft into kindness. Marcus did not answer. He zoomed in slowly. The lion's seal filled the screen. Its mane curved around a small crown. Its paw rested on 3 tiny stars. Caleb whispered, That is the Freeman mark. The old janitor crossed himself softly. The nurse looked from the screen to Vivian, and for the first time, doubt entered her eyes. Naomi looked down at the soup-stained napkin in her palm. The same lion mark. The same shape. The same impossible question. Ask about the lion. Marcus took a quiet step toward Naomi. May I see the napkin again? This time, Naomi did not hand it over right away. She had already watched Vivian snatch it once. She held it close to her chest, beside the torn envelope and the hospital bill. Will it help my mother? She asked. The question broke something small in the room. Marcus's face changed. Not pity, respect. It may help us understand why my client asked for you. Vivian laughed, sharp and nervous. Your client? Stop making this sound bigger than it is. She is a waitress who stole soup. Marcus turned his eyes to her. Then why are you afraid of napkin? No one moved. Vivian's red jacket suddenly looked too bright under the hospital lights. Naomi slowly placed the napkin on the counter. Marcus set Caleb's phone beside it. 2 lions, one on a screen, one in soup stain and ink. Different materials. Same mark. He photographed both with his own phone, then sent the images to someone with one tap. The lobby stayed silent as the message delivered. Vivian folded her arms. This is harassment. No, Marcus said. This is preservation of evidence. The word evidence made Naomi's knees weaken. Evidence meant the night had not disappeared. Evidence meant Vivian's voice was no longer the only voice in the room. For one tiny second, Naomi felt air reach her lungs. Then the nurse's desk phone rang again. The nurse answered, listened, and looked at Naomi with pain. They need the deposits soon. Hope dropped hard. Vivian heard it and smiled. See, while you people play detective, her mother waits. Naomi closed her eyes. That was the cruelty of it. The truth might be coming, but sickness did not wait for truth. Money did not wait for proof. Medicine did not wait for justice. If you were standing in that lobby, what would you think a lion really meant? A rich man's secret, a family mark, or the first crack in Vivian's lie? Marcus looked at the nurse. How much is needed to hold the refill until morning? Naomi lifted her head fast. Vivian did too. The nurse gave the amount quietly. Marcus reached for his wallet, then stopped. He looked at Naomi first, as if he understood that dignity could be harmed even by help. This is not payment for silence, he said. It is time, nothing more. Naomi's lips trembled. She wanted to refuse. She wanted to stand on her own. But her mother's breath was on the other side of that hallway. Time, she repeated. Only time. Marcus nodded and paid the holding deposit directly to the nurse. Not enough to fix everything. Enough to stop the immediate fall. Vivian's jaw tightened. So now the Freeman people buy witnesses? The words left her mouth too quickly. Marcus looked at her. Caleb looked at her. The janitor looked at her. Naomi looked at her. Vivian had said the name before Marcus had. Freeman people? Marcus asked. Vivian's face emptied for one dangerous second. Then she forced a shrug. The boy said it earlier. Caleb shook his head. Not to you. Not like that. The phone in Marcus's hand buzzed. A reply had arrived. He opened it, and his expression hardened. The message was short. Verify, ring in original footage. Do not alert Vivian. Protect the girl. Marcus looked toward the lobby doors, then back at Naomi. Where is the original diner camera stored? Vivian stepped in front of him. Private property. Marcus slipped the phone into his pocket. Then keep it private and untouched. Naomi understood only pieces. The ring mattered. The soup mattered. The photo mattered. But every answer seemed to open a larger door. Vivian turned toward the exit, already reaching for her phone. Marcus noticed. Mrs. Brooks. She stopped. If that footage disappears, this conversation becomes much more serious. Vivian smiled without warmth. Careful, Mr. Reed. Poor girls lie. Rich men threaten. Cameras break. Then she walked out of the hospital. Naomi watched the red jacket vanish through the sliding doors. A second later, Caleb's phone buzzed again on the counter. A new message appeared from an unknown number. It was a still image from the diner's outside camera, clearer than Caleb's photo. The blind old man was holding the soup. His ring was bright, and behind him, reflected in the glass, Vivian's hand was reaching toward the security switch before Naomi had even been accused. The still image on Caleb's phone made the hospital lobby go silent. Vivian's hand was there in the glass reflection, reaching toward the security switch before Naomi had even been accused. Not after. Before. Marcus Reed stared at it for a long second. Caleb stared too, his face pale with the fear of a boy who had just realized he was holding something dangerous. Naomi did not move. The photo was small, cracked by the screen, but it was enough to make her heart shake. It did not prove everything. It did not explain the ring. It did not tell her who the blind old man was. But it showed one thing clearly. Vivian had wanted the truth buried before anyone asked for it. "Send that to me now," Marcus said. Caleb's fingers trembled. "If Mrs. Brooks finds out, she already knows you saw too much." Caleb swallowed and sent the image. Marcus saved it, then looked at the nurse. "Please make a copy of the payment receipt for Naomi Carter. Directly to her. No one else." Naomi lifted her head. "Why are you doing this?" Marcus turned to her. His voice softened, but stayed careful. "Because someone should have asked that question when you were on your knees outside that diner." Naomi looked down at her shoes. The split side, the dried soup on the edge, the dust from 6 blocks of walking. Kindness from powerful people frightened her more than insults from cruel ones. Insults, she understood. Help always came with a price. "I cannot owe you," she said. Marcus did not step closer. He gave her space. "You owe me nothing. People always say that before they ask for something." Marcus looked at the napkin, the torn envelope, and her cracked phone. "Then let me ask for one thing now. Stay alive long enough for the truth to catch up." The words landed quietly. Naomi blinked, fighting tears she did not want strangers to see. For the first time that night, no one laughed. No phone lifted. No one called her a thief. The nurse slid the receipt across the counter with gentle fingers. "The refill is held until morning." Naomi held the paper like it weighed more than money. Time. Marcus had bought time. Not a rescue. Not a new life. Just a thin bridge over one dark hour. "Thank you," Naomi whispered. "For my mother. Not for me." Marcus nodded, as if he understood the difference. Then the hallway doors opened, and a tired aide stepped out. "Naomi? Your mother is awake." Naomi moved at once, then stopped and looked back at the soup-stained napkin on the counter. Marcus picked it up carefully, folded it once, and handed it back. "Keep this," he said. "It came to you first." Naomi took it with both hands. The lion mark looked darker now, as if the stain had become a warning. She walked down the hallway with the nurse, past rooms full of machines, soft coughing, and families sleeping in chairs. Behind her, Marcus stayed in the lobby, already making another call. "Secure the diner footage," he said under his breath. "No uniforms. No noise. And find Mr. Freeman before Mrs. Brooks does." Naomi did not hear the last sentence clearly. She only heard one word. Freeman. It followed her into her mother's room like a shadow. Grace Carter lay beneath a thin blanket, smaller than Naomi remembered from that morning. Her eyes opened slowly. "Baby." Naomi rushed to the bedside and took her hand. "I am here, Mama." Grace touched Naomi's torn sleeve, then the missing name tag mark on her apron. "What did they do to you?" Naomi tried to smile. "Nothing I cannot carry." Grace's eyes moved to the folded napkin in Naomi's hand. Her fingers tightened. "Where did you get that?" Naomi looked down. "A blind man. I gave him soup." Grace's breathing changed. "Not much. Enough." "What blind man?" "I do not know. He wore a ring with a lion." Grace closed her eyes, and one tear slid sideways into her hair. Naomi leaned closer. "Mama." Grace whispered, so softly Naomi almost missed it. "A lion does not come to the poor unless the past has found the door." Naomi's skin went cold. "What past?" Grace shook her head, weak and afraid. "Not tonight. Mama, please." Grace's hand trembled around Naomi's. "Promise me you will not go back to that diner alone." Before Naomi could answer, a voice came from the doorway. Marcus stood there, respectful, not entering until Naomi looked at him. "I am sorry," he said. "I need to ask one question." Grace turned her face away as soon as she saw his suit. Fear crossed her features like a shadow passing over water. Naomi noticed. Marcus noticed too. He looked at the napkin, then at Grace. Mrs. Carter, he said gently, have you ever heard the name Elijah Freeman? The room changed. The machines kept beeping. The hallway kept moving. But inside that small room, every breath seemed to stop. Grace's hand went limp in Naomi's palm. Her eyes filled with a terror older than Naomi's pain. Then she whispered one sentence that made Marcus step back. Tell him I kept the girl safe. Tell him I kept the girl safe. Grace Carter's whisper did not sound like a sentence. It sounded like a door opening in a room Naomi had never been allowed to enter. Marcus Reed stood at the doorway, one hand still on the frame, his face losing its calm for the first time. Naomi looked from him to her mother, still holding the soup-stained napkin with the lion mark pressed between her fingers. Mama, she said, what girl? Grace closed her eyes. The hospital machine beside her kept beeping, steady and small, while the whole room seemed to lean toward her answer. You, Grace whispered. Naomi stepped back as if the floor had shifted. Safe from who? Grace did not answer. She looked at Marcus with fear, not because he had threatened her, but because the name he carried had followed her into this room. Elijah Freeman. The name was too big for the cracked phone, the unpaid medicine, the torn apron, the soup stain, the tired bed. Marcus lowered his voice. Mrs. Carter, did you know Mr. Freeman? Grace's fingers tightened around Naomi's hand. I knew a promise made in his house. Naomi felt cold move through her chest. His house. Grace turned her face toward the window. Outside, city lights trembled in the glass. I was not always sick in this bed, she said. I worked in places where poor women were told to use the back door, keep their eyes down, and never touch anything that shined. Naomi swallowed. She wanted the full truth. She also feared it. Were you his maid? Grace shook her head slightly. I was hired in the Freeman Estate kitchen for one season. Just one. Long enough to see rich people smile in public and hide knives in private. Marcus went still. What year? Grace looked at him. The year the old hospital wing closed. The year a woman disappeared from that house with a baby wrapped in a blue towel. Naomi's breath broke. Mama, stop talking in pieces. Grace's eyes filled. Pieces are all I survived with. The napkin trembled in Naomi's hand. The lion mark no longer looked like a mystery. It looked like a warning that had waited years to find her. Marcus pulled out his phone, but Grace raised one weak hand. No recordings. Marcus stopped at once. Then let me listen. Grace nodded, still breathing carefully. There was a woman named Lillian. Kind, quiet, not rich like them, but she belonged there more than they did. She told me if anything happened, I should take the child to Mercy General and wait for a man with a lion ring. Naomi stared at the napkin. A child, a hospital, a lion ring. The room tightened around her. What child? Grace looked at her daughter with a pain that had been held back for too many years. Naomi, I was told to protect you. That is all I can say tonight. No, Naomi Guispeth. That is not all. Her voice cracked, but she did not shout. She had been humiliated, accused, dragged, and starved of answers. Still, she stood beside the bed like a daughter, not a judge. I spent my whole life thinking poverty was the only secret in this family. Grace began to cry without sound. Marcus looked away, giving them the dignity of privacy, even while the truth pulled him closer. Then his phone buzzed. A message flashed from his assistant. Old Freeman Estate staff records incomplete. One kitchen worker file missing. Name, Grace Carter. Marcus read it once, and his eyes hardened. He did not show Naomi. Not yet. The truth was moving, but it was still broken. Too many pieces were missing. Grace saw his face and understood enough. They erased me, she said. Did they? Marcus asked softly. Grace nodded. A woman in red knew where the records were kept. Naomi looked up sharply. Vivian. Grace's eyes widened with the same terror from before. I did not say her name, but the damage was done. Naomi heard it. Marcus heard it. The room heard it. Vivian Brooks was not just a cruel diner owner anymore. She was standing closer to the old wound than anyone had admitted. For one tiny second, hope sparked. If Grace had a missing file, if the lion ring matched the napkin, if Vivian knew the records, then maybe Naomi had not been crazy. Maybe the old man had not chosen her by accident. Maybe the bowl of soup had opened something buried. Then the hallway lights flickered, and a nurse hurried past the door. Marcus stepped into the corridor and answered a call in a low voice. Naomi heard only fragments. The diner footage, gone from the main drive, back up maybe. Vivian left 10 minutes ago. Marcus turned back, his expression dark. Mrs. Carter, where would Vivian keep old records if she wanted them hidden? Grace shook her head. I cannot. Naomi reached for her mother's hand. Mama, please. Grace looked at the napkin, then at Naomi. Brooks' Diner was not always Vivian's. Years ago, it was a Freeman property. Storage room, back wall, metal cabinet. But Naomi, listen to me. Her grip tightened with sudden fear. Do not go there. Before Naomi could answer, Caleb called Marcus's phone. His voice shook through the speaker. Mr. Reed, Mrs. Brooks came back to the diner. She took the camera box, and she said by sunrise, no one will remember the blind man was ever there. Vivian took the camera box, and she said by sunrise, no one will remember the blind man was ever there. Caleb's frightened voice echoed through Marcus Reed's phone. The hospital hallway suddenly felt too small. Marcus closed his eyes for one brief second, then looked back into Grace Carter's room. Naomi had heard enough. She was already reaching for her worn jacket. I have to go, she said. Grace struggled to sit up. No. Naomi hurried to her bedside. Mama, if that footage disappears, no one will believe what happened. Grace gripped her daughter's wrist with surprising strength. I'm not afraid of losing the truth. She drew a painful breath. I'm afraid of losing you. Naomi looked into her mother's tired eyes. Fear lived there, but so did something deeper. Recognition. Grace was not afraid of Vivian alone. She was afraid of whatever waited behind the lion. Marcus stepped inside. Mrs. Carter is right. If Vivian is destroying evidence, she will expect someone to stop her. Naomi met his eyes. Then we cannot let her be alone with it. Marcus was silent. He knew she was right. He also knew she had no idea how dangerous powerful people became when secrets were cornered. My people are on their way, he said. They will secure the building. Naomi shook her head. Too late. She looked at Caleb's last message, still glowing on Marcus's phone. Vivian had already returned. Every second mattered. She already has the camera box. Marcus studied Naomi for a long moment. She was exhausted, hungry. Her sleeve was still torn where Vivian had ripped away her name tag. Yet the first thing she wanted to protect was not herself. It was the truth. If we go, Marcus said quietly, you follow my instructions. Naomi nodded without hesitation. Grace closed her eyes. Please come back, she whispered. Naomi kissed her mother's forehead. I will. They left the hospital together. Outside, the night air had grown colder. Marcus opened the back door of his sedan, but Naomi hesitated before getting in. She had never ridden in a car like this. The polished black paint reflected the hospital lights. The leather seats looked cleaner than any room she had ever rented. It is only a ride, Marcus said, noticing her discomfort. Naomi climbed inside without another word. During the drive, neither of them spoke for several minutes. The city rolled past the windows in silence. Small apartments, closed shops, empty bus stops. Finally, Naomi looked down at the folded napkin still resting in her hand. Why does that lion frighten everyone? Marcus kept his eyes on the road ahead. Because symbols survive longer than people. Naomi frowned. That is not an answer. It is the only one I can give tonight. She almost asked another question, but she stopped herself. Marcus had helped her without asking for anything. He had bought her mother time. He had protected the evidence. And yet he was still hiding something. Not because he wanted to hurt her, because someone else had told him to wait. Brooks' Diner stood dark when they arrived. Only one light burned inside the office. Caleb was waiting behind the building, pacing beside the delivery door. The moment he saw Marcus's car, he rushed over. She locked herself inside, he whispered. She told everyone to leave. Did anyone else come? Marcus asked. Caleb nodded nervously. A man in a gray truck. I have never seen him before. They carried something heavy into the storage room. Naomi felt her stomach tighten. The camera box? I think so. Marcus looked toward the dark windows. Stay outside, he told Naomi. She did not argue immediately. Then she remembered the storage room. Mama said there's an old metal cabinet behind the back wall. Marcus turned sharply toward her. What? Naomi repeated every word Grace had said. Freeman property. Storage room. Metal cabinet. Marcus's expression changed. He immediately called someone. Bring a locksmith. Now. Before anyone could answer, a loud crash came from inside the diner. Glass shattered. Caleb jumped. Naomi instinctively stepped toward the building. Marcus caught her arm. Wait. Smoke drifted through the cracked kitchen window. Not thick black smoke. Thin gray smoke. Paper smoke. Vivian was burning something. Naomi pulled free. Those records. She ran toward the back in trance before Marcus could stop her. The kitchen door was unlocked. The smell hit first. Burned paper. Melted plastic. Hot dust. Vivian stood near the storage room, holding a metal trash can. Orange flames danced inside it. Loose files curled into black ash. Beside the fire sat the security recorder with its cover torn open. Naomi's voice echoed through the kitchen. Stop! Vivian spun around. Her expensive jacket was gone. Her sleeves were rolled up. Ash stained her hands. She looked less like a business owner than someone desperately trying to erase a lifetime. You should have stayed at the hospital, Vivian said. Naomi stepped closer. Why are you burning them? Vivian laughed once. It sounded tired now, because poor girls never understand one simple truth. She kicked another stack of folders toward the flames. Dead secrets keep rich people alive. Marcus entered behind Naomi, followed by Caleb. His eyes swept across the room. The burning files. The broken recorder. The open storage cabinet built into the back wall. Vivian saw where he was looking and quickly slammed the cabinet door shut. Too late. Naomi had already seen something inside. A faded blue towel, folded carefully beneath a dusty box. Her breath stopped. Grace had said, a baby wrapped in a blue towel. Vivian noticed Naomi staring. Without warning, she grabbed the towel, shoved it toward the flames, and struck a lighter. No. Naomi lunged forward. At the same instant, Marcus reached for Vivian's wrist. The lighter slipped from her fingers, hit the floor, and spun beneath the cabinet. Caleb grabbed the burning towel before it reached the trash can, beating out the flames with his apron. Smoke filled the room. Everyone coughed. In the confusion, Vivian backed toward the broken security recorder. She lifted a heavy metal hammer lying beside it. Marcus saw it first. Do not. But Vivian brought the hammer down with all her strength. The recorder exploded into pieces across the concrete floor. Silence followed. Vivian lowered the hammer slowly, breathing hard. Now, she said, staring directly at Marcus. Prove what happened outside my diner. Then Naomi looked through the smoke at the half-burned blue towel Caleb had saved. Sewn into one corner, barely visible beneath the scorch marks, was the same crowned lion stitched in faded golden thread. The crowned lion stitched into the half-burned blue towel made the storage room feel smaller than a prison cell. Naomi stood in the smoke, staring at the faded golden thread while Caleb held the towel like it might break apart in his hands. Vivian Brooks had destroyed the security recorder. She had burned old files. She had crushed the first clear path to the truth with a hammer. Yet the smallest thing had survived. Not a video, not a signed statement. A baby towel. Marcus Reed stepped closer, his voice low. Do not touch the stitching. Caleb froze. Naomi looked at Marcus. Is it Freeman? Marcus did not answer right away. That silence was louder than yes. Vivian laughed, but her laugh shook. A towel with a logo means nothing. Rich families put their symbols on everything. Napkins, blankets, charity boxes. It is trash. Naomi turned to her. Then why did you try to burn it? Vivian's mouth tightened. For 1 second, she had no speech ready. No crowd to control. No hospital desk. No diner customers. Just ash on her hands and a poor waitress asking the one question she could not twist. Marcus took a photo of the towel and sent it immediately. We are leaving, he said. Vivian blocked the storage room door. No one is taking property from my diner. This building was a Freeman property before it was yours, Marcus said. And if this belonged to the estate, it was never yours to burn. Caleb's eyes widened. Naomi's breath caught. Vivian's face drained of color, then hardened again. You have no warrant. No, Marcus said. but I have a client who can bring more lawyers to this street than you have lies. Outside, headlights swept across the kitchen window. One car, then another. Not the 7 SUVs from the title yet, but enough black vehicles to make the back alley glow with moving light. Vivian turned toward the window, and fear flashed across her face before pride covered it. Marcus lowered his voice to Naomi. You need to come with me to the diner floor. Whatever happens next must happen in front of witnesses. Naomi looked toward the front room, where Vivian had humiliated her hours earlier. The same tables, the same counter, the same window where the blind old man had sat outside with cold soup. Her knees weakened. I did not want another crowd. Marcus looked at the towel in Caleb's hands. I know, but Vivian used crowds to bury you. Now the truth needs a room big enough to breathe. They moved into the diner floor. Caleb carried the towel. Marcus carried the cracked phone with the photo. Naomi carried the soup-stained napkin. Vivian followed behind them, already calling someone, already trying to build another wall with her voice. But the night had changed. The young waitress who had stayed silent before stood near the register. The cook came out of the kitchen. 2 late customers returned after seeing the black cars outside. Within minutes, whispers filled the diner again. This time, they were not laughing at Naomi. They were watching Vivian. Marcus placed the napkin, Caleb's phone, and the blue towel on the counter, one beside the other. Soup stain. Camera still. Crown lion. 3 small pieces. Not the full truth. Enough to make everyone lean in. Vivian pointed at Naomi. This girl is dangerous. She broke into my storage room and staged this whole thing. Naomi did not flinch. Her voice was tired, but steady. I came because you were burning what you said did not matter. The room went quiet. Marcus looked at the gathered staff, the customers, the nurse who had followed after hearing the commotion outside, and Caleb trembling near the counter. Then he looked at the front window, where the reflection still showed the sidewalk where the soup had been given. If you were standing in that diner before the truth came out, would you still believe the woman with money, or the girl holding the napkin everyone called trash? Vivian saw the doubt spreading and struck first. She grabbed the blue towel from the counter and held it up. Look at this. A dirty rag. That is all. Naomi stepped forward. Please do not tear it. Vivian smiled, still begging for scraps. Then the bell above the diner door rang. Once. Slow. Sharp. Everyone turned. The blind old man stood in the doorway, his cracked glasses still on, his white cane in one hand, the gold lion ring glowing under the diner lights. Behind him, more headlights filled the street. Marcus straightened. Vivian stopped breathing. The old man lifted his face toward the counter and said, Put the towel down, Vivian. Put the towel down, Vivian. The blind old man's voice did not rise, but the diner obeyed it before Vivian did. Every whisper stopped. Every phone lifted higher. Naomi stood near the counter with a soup-stained napkin in her hand, watching the man she had fed step into the same room where she had been called a thief. Outside, black SUVs rolled into the street one after another. 1, 2, 3. Then 4 more stopped in front of Brooks' diner, blocking the curve from both sides. Their headlights washed through the windows and turned Vivian's red jacket pale. 7 SUVs. At dawn. For 1 poor waitress and 1 bowl of soup. Vivian gripped the half-burned blue towel. Who do you think you are? The old man removed his cracked glasses. His cloudy eyes stayed calm, but the men behind him did not move like strangers. They moved like security. Marcus Reed stepped beside him and spoke clearly. This is Elijah Freeman, founder of Freeman Holdings. The diner gasped. Caleb covered his mouth. The cook stepped back. Naomi forgot how to breathe. Vivian laughed once, but it broke in the middle. No, that is impossible. Elijah turned toward her voice. You knew my ring before you knew my name. Marcus placed his phone on the counter and connected it to the small diner screen above the register. The first image appeared. Naomi on one knee outside the diner, placing the last bowl of soup into Elijah's hands. Vivian in the doorway, pointing at her. The lion ring catching the light. The room went silent. Marcus clicked again. Caleb's photo appeared, showing Vivian's first statement and the reflection of Elijah at the window. Then the restored still appeared. Vivian's hand reaching toward the security switch before Naomi had ever been accused. That is fake, Vivian snapped. Marcus placed the broken recorder casing on the counter. Then explain why the recorder was smashed. Explain why Freeman files were burned. Explain why this towel was hidden in your storage wall. Caleb laid the blue towel beside the napkin. Soup stain. Camera still. Crown lion. 3 small pieces. 1 truth. Elijah reached out, and Marcus guided his hand to the burned cloth. His fingers touched the golden stitching. His face changed, not with surprise, with grief. This was from the Freeman Shelter Program, he said. Lillian gave these to women and children who had nowhere safe to sleep. Grace Carter was wheeled in by the nurse, wrapped in a hospital blanket. Naomi rushed to her. Mama, why are you here? Grace held Naomi's hand. Because I let fear keep me quiet once. Elijah turned toward her voice. Grace Carter. Grace nodded, tears in her eyes. I kept the girls safe. Naomi looked at her mother. What did that mean? Grace took a shaking breath. It meant I kept you away from people who punish kindness. Years ago, Lillian Freeman helped me when I had nothing. Vivian worked around those records. When Lillian died, some people wanted every trace of that charity erased because it proved who had been stealing from the poor. Marcus placed a recovered transfer sheet on the counter. Vivian Brooks signed for the storage cabinet when this diner changed hands. She had the records. She had the footage. She had the truth. The young waitress whispered. She knew. Caleb said louder. She knew before tonight. Vivian backed away. This has nothing to do with the soup. Elijah's voice hardened. It has everything to do with the soup. You saw a hungry man and called him trash. You saw a hungry girl give what she needed and called her a thief. That is why I came out in rags. I wanted to see what people did when power was not watching. Naomi's tears finally fell. It was only soup. Elijah shook his head slowly. No, it was the last soup. The word struck the room harder than any accusation. Phones lowered. Faces changed. The same people who had laughed now stood ashamed beneath the diner lights. Vivian clutched the towel like it could still save her. Marcus looked at her and said, Mrs. Brooks, step away from the counter. Vivian's lips trembled. You cannot ruin me over a bowl of soup. Elijah touched the lion ring on his finger. No, Vivian, you ruined yourself when you tried to bury the truth behind it. Naomi stood between her sick mother and the man she had fed, still wearing her torn apron, still hungry, still poor in the eyes of the room. But no one was laughing now. The lie had lost its crowd. Then Vivian suddenly grabbed the blue towel and ran toward the kitchen, shouting, No one gets to use my diner against me. Vivian ran toward the kitchen with the blue towel crushed in her fist, but she did not get far. One of Elijah Freeman's security men stepped into the doorway without touching her. He only stood there, tall and silent, blocking the path she had used all night to escape the truth. Vivian stopped so sharply her heels scraped the floor. The diner watched her turn back, breathing hard, her red jacket wrinkled, her hands shaking around the half-burned cloth. The woman who had controlled every voice in a room now had nowhere left to point. Give it to me, Marcus Reed said. Vivian held the towel tighter. This is my property. Elijah's face did not change. No, it is evidence. That word broke something in her. She looked at the customers, the staff, the phones, the 7 SUVs outside, and finally at Naomi Carter, the poor waitress she had tried to erase with one torn name tag. You think she is innocent? Vivian snapped. She gave away food that did not belong to her. Naomi stood beside Grace, still tired, still hungry, still wearing the apron Vivian had shamed. But her voice was steady. I gave food to a man who was starving. Elijah turned toward the crowd, and I asked for help. Not money, not status, not my name, just help. He lifted the gold lion ring. Everyone saw the rags. Only one person saw the hunger. The diner went quiet. The man with the silver watch lowered his head. The woman with diamond earrings turned her phone away, ashamed of what she had recorded. Caleb stepped forward and placed Naomi's torn name tag on the counter. She did what none of us did. Vivian glared at him, but the power was gone from it. Marcus opened a folder and spoke to the room, Not like a man chasing revenge, but like a man restoring order. Effective immediately, Brooks Diner is under legal review for destruction of evidence, falsified employee statements, and misuse of records tied to the former Freeman property. Mrs. Brooks will no longer operate this location while the investigation is pending. Vivian's mouth opened. No words came out. The cook whispered, "She lost the diner?" Marcus looked at him. "She lost the right to use it to hurt people." Vivian's eyes filled with fury. "You cannot do this to me." Elijah answered softly. "Vivian, you did this in front of everyone. That was the justice. Not shouting, not revenge, not danger. Just every lie walking back into the room and standing beside her." Vivian looked at Naomi, and for the first time, she was not looking down. "Say something," Vivian demanded. "Tell them you forgive me, so this ends." Naomi held the soup-stained napkin in one hand and Grace's hand in the other. Her eyes were wet, but her spine stayed straight. "Forgiveness is not a receipt you get because you were caught." The words landed clean. No one laughed. No one whispered against her. Elijah nodded once, as if dignity itself had spoken. Vivian slowly placed the blue towel on the counter. Marcus took it, sealed it in a clear evidence bag, and handed it to one of the legal staff. Then Elijah turned to Naomi. "You lost your pay because you fed me." Naomi looked down. "I lost more than pay." "I know." Elijah's voice grew heavy. "You lost safety. You lost respect in a room that owed you respect. You almost lost medicine for your mother because a woman with power wanted to make kindness look like theft." Grace squeezed Naomi's hand. Naomi tried to breathe through the pain of being seen so clearly. Elijah continued, "Freeman Foundation will cover your mother's medical care while the investigation continues." Naomi shook her head at once. "I cannot be bought." "I'm not buying you," Elijah said. "I'm paying a debt this city owes to people like you." Then he placed a business card on the counter, beside the napkin and the empty soup bowl Caleb had brought in from outside. "And when you are ready, I want you to help rebuild this diner into something Lillian Freeman meant it to be. A place where hungry people are fed before they are judged." Naomi stared at the card. It did not feel like rescue. It felt like a door, a heavy door, one she could choose to open. Vivian sank into a chair, all her polish gone, while the room watched the poor waitress become the only person Elijah Freeman asked to trust. Outside, the dawn light touched the 7 SUVs. Inside, Naomi picked up the old empty bowl, the same bowl that had started everything. Her hands trembled. Elijah heard it in the silence. "Naomi Carter," he said, "will you come with me tomorrow and see what your kindness has awakened?" The next morning, Naomi Carter stood outside Brooks' Diner with the empty soup bowl in her hands. The 7 SUVs were gone. The crowds were gone. Vivian Brooks was gone too, removed from the place where her voice had once made poor people shrink. What remained was quieter. The cracked sidewalk, the front window, the doorway where Naomi had knelt, the same spot where a blind old man had held cold soup, while everyone decided he was nothing. Naomi looked at the bowl and remembered how light it had felt when she gave it away, and how heavy her life became because of it. Elijah Freeman stood beside her, his white cane in one hand, the gold lion ring on the other. He did not speak for a while. He let the silence do what money could not. He let Naomi feel the difference between being watched in shame and being seen with respect. Grace Carter waited in a car nearby with a nurse, warm blanket across her knees, medicine finally secured, breathing easier than she had in weeks. Naomi looked back at her mother, then at the diner sign. "I still feel scared," she admitted. Elijah nodded. "Good. Fear means you understand the weight of the door before you open it." Marcus Reed unlocked the diner and pushed the door wide. Inside, the tables had been cleaned. The counter had been cleared. Naomi's tour name tag lay under the glass near the register, not as trash, but as proof. Beside it sat the soup-stained napkin and a photo of the old bowl. Elijah touched the counter gently. "This place was used to shame hunger," he said. "Now it will answer it." Days passed, then weeks. The diner did not reopen as Brooks' Diner. A new sign went up in clean white letters, "Lillian's Table." Under it, smaller words read, "No one hungry is invisible." Naomi did not become rich overnight in the way people imagine. She did not wake up in a mansion forgetting the sound of a hospital phone. She learned budgets, food orders, staff schedules, community lists. She sat with lawyers, nurses, cooks, and shelter workers. She made mistakes. She asked questions. She cried once in the pantry when the pressure felt too big for a girl who had once counted 3 coins under a street lamp. Then she wiped her face, tied her apron, and went back out. Because dignity had never meant never shaking. It meant shaking and still choosing what was right. Caleb became the first assistant manager. The old janitor from Mercy General came every Friday for coffee and called the Lion Seal the day Truth got hungry. The young waitress who had stayed silent came back too, this time learning how to speak before cruelty became a crowd. Vivian's name appeared in papers for the legal review. Not destroyed, not hunted, exposed. She lost the diner, the false respect, and the power to make poverty look like a crime. That was enough. One evening, as the sun lowered over the street, Naomi carried a fresh bowl of soup to the front door. A homeless woman stood outside, nervous, one hand on a torn bag, already stepping back like kindness might cost too much. Naomi opened the door herself. No shouting, no pointing, no phones lifted a laugh. She knelt, not because she was beneath anyone, but because compassion sometimes lowers itself so another person does not have to feel small. Here, Naomi said softly, eat before it gets cold. Across the room, Elijah heard the words and smiled. Grace wiped her eyes. Marcus looked toward the window where the whole story had begun. The woman took the bowl with trembling hands. Naomi noticed the old, empty bowl on the shelf behind the counter. The same bowl she had once given away when she had nothing left. It was no longer a symbol of loss. It was a promise. Never look away. Never call hunger trash. Never measure a human soul by clothes, money, or where they sit outside a glass door. Because one poor waitress gave her last soup to a blind beggar, and by dawn, 7 SUVs came to her street. But the real miracle was not the SUVs. It was that her kindness survived humiliation, her dignity survived poverty, and the truth finally found the door. So remember this. Do not shame the poor for giving what little they have. Do not laugh at the hungry because they cannot pay. And never believe power only wears a suit. Sometimes it sits quietly outside, holding a cold bowl of soup, waiting to see who still has a heart.